Kirk Ferentz upset with his special teams. What's it going to take for Iowa to turn around a tough start to 2025 today? Locked on Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio here in the state of Iowa, including currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network, where you can hear me each weekday from noon to 2 on Des Moines Sports Station 106.3 KXNO, along with stations in Sioux City, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and the Quad Cities. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. We're going to take a look at the press conferences from today. Kirk Ferentz talked to the media along with the players. We will break it all down. We'll also hear from Elliott Clough. He was there in Iowa City and get his perspective after his conversations with the players. Plus, what we want to see this week against UMass. Yes, that's opponent, and the Minutemen are not very good. But let's begin today from Iowa City and what we heard from Kirk Ferentz, first press conference since after the disappointing loss to Iowa State over the weekend, 16-13, as the Hawkeyes fell in that one. Top of the line takeaway, certainly at the top for me, was just a small clip, but he talked about the disappointment in the special teams. And that was something that we talked about, a key to the game leading into the game against Iowa State over the weekend. I thought Iowa certainly had to win special teams. And when you broke down the game and you look at the differences in the team and the way that they were played, usually it was an advantage for Iowa in past years and certainly wasn't on Saturday. And that goes kind of big picture with this team, even as good as the field goal kicking has been now with Drew Stevens after his disappointing end to his season 2 years ago, what it's turned into last year and into this year. He's been good. Obviously, Reese Dakin, you feel like in good shape there, but Dakin wasn't at an elite level. But then taking a step further and the disappointment that we saw from the return man in Caden Weegan, starting the game off just on a bad note with the penalty, backing them up and starting that way, was never able to get any running room and really do much of anything. Went backwards, let a punt drop. It was just special teams were not a elite factor for Iowa. And when that's the case, you're going to see the Hawkeyes struggle. I mean, they have to be at a big time level. And Kirk Ferentz certainly mentioned that. He also talked about the tight end play and the wide receiver play and said that there was some disappointment on that area. Wants to see more growth out of that. He talked about being more balanced and, kind of leads to what we'll talk about a little bit later and what we want to see in the game against UMass, against this UMass team that's not good, that just lost to Bryant over the weekend. You know that this is going to be an opportunity for Iowa to work on a bunch of different things. And Kirk mentioned, well, first we want to win the game. Yeah, we get that. Secondly, though, is that they want to be balanced. And if there was ever a time where throw balance out the window, go out there and try to see and try to build, not just to see what you have in your passing game, but try to build on what you can be and potentially being going forward. This is the weekend to do it. This is the final tune-up for this Iowa football team, what they are and what they're going to be able to do going forward. Back to a moment and Caden Weegan. And we'll hear from Elliott about this a little bit deeper later on. Caden Weegan mentioned that he was not wearing grass shoes on Saturday. He was wearing turf shoes. Now, I personally don't know the difference. Of course, I don't run a 4.40. Not going to matter for me. I'm going to be slow regardless of what kind of cleats you put on my fat body. However, for a guy like that to have something what seems as simple as wearing the right shoes in a football game that's played on grass, it just leaves you scratching your head a little bit the way that played out. Also, Mark Gronowski, talking and hearing from Mark Gronowski and what he had to say. You can see that he's still trying to find his way. And there were drops on Saturday, no doubt. I mentioned I went back and reviewed things on Sunday night, and going back and watching the second time, the thing that still came up to me, yeah, there were drops, absolutely. But the ball placement has to be better for Mark Gronowski. And it feels like there's a lot of people that are starting to come to the defense of Mark Gronowski. And he wasn't awful, right? But he wasn't great either. And for as good as he was in the run game, and that's going to be something that's going to be important if he's even going to be an average quarterback for Iowa this year. A big part of that's going to be what he's able to do with his legs this season. But that was a component that in the passing game, he still needs to be better too. Yeah, wide receivers, tight ends, they got to help him. It can't afford losses. Another interesting component was the conversation about the slow mesh. And after Warren Ruggiero was hired in the offseason, we talked a little bit about here on Locked On Hawkeyes about that slow mesh that he brought to Wake Forest and took a Wake Forest team and brought something different to them. Always a team when he was the offensive coordinator that were able to score in the ACC. Wake Forest, certainly some disadvantages for that program in comparison to many of their ACC brethren in terms of financial aspect, what they pay in NIL, those kind of things, small private school in comparison to the big schools that are there in the ACC. And he was able to close that gap, but he did it with something innovative. Does this become part of something that Iowa does game in and game out? Are we going to see it on Saturday night against UMass? The slow mesh concept is something that absolutely can work at a high level because it has before. And this is something that adds an extra wrinkle that teams then need to practice against, that need to work on, that they need to go in. And when you're doing that, it's the same thing that we get into special teams. When you add these extra layers to things, it just adds to the hours that are put there in film work and what you do. And then it also takes away from what you're doing of just your basic work that you're doing in preparation for an opponent. I want to see Iowa use it even more. I want to see Iowa out there 6, 8, maybe 10 times a game, that this is going to be a concept that they're using because A, it can be effective, but secondly, it adds an advantage to Iowa and some of the other things that they're doing. I'm hopeful that it will be a part, but not overly optimistic because we've had these conversations before about seeing something different, seeing something innovative, going another direction, and hopefully, possibly, that could be something that we'll see work out for Iowa. A couple other things from Kirk. He also mentioned that Addison Estrenga, the tight end, is going to be out for the season. An Achilles injury that puts him out for the year. He does have a redshirt season available, so potentially he'll be able to come back next season for the Hawkeyes at the tight end position that the last couple of years has turned into a little bit of a disappointment. Is that by design? Tight end usage was not high a year ago. Luke Lachey, though, was coming off that injury. Or is this something that with the Shanahan offense and the way that Tim Lester runs the offense, that we're not going to see tight ends involved at the same level of past years? It would be a disappointment, but also another disappointment has been the recruiting at this position. For all the accolades and everything that I was built and building up tight end U, and many of those guys, underutilized, under-recruited, and the gems that they were able to find in the recruiting world, the Sam Laportas of the world, obviously the George Kittles of the world, the guys like that were not well regarded at the tight end position, and I was able to find them. You were hopeful these last 4 or 5 years that Iowa would be able to take that momentum at the tight end spot and get some of their top-level targets. And that hasn't been the case. They have missed out on a number of the best tight ends that they've been after in the recruiting game, and certainly a disappointment when you look at that stage. And if you think there'd be a position that Iowa would not have trouble recruiting, it'd be the tight end position. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. Let's go over to Iowa City. We're going to hear from Elliott Clough. He was there talking to the players earlier today and also there for the Kirk Ferentz press conference. We'll get Elliott's perspective on what he saw as we continue and a breakdown of the quarterback position, Mark Gronowski, what he heard. That's coming up next. Locked On Hawkeyes. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Look, I've been out there on the golf course before. I've had absolutely opportunities, and there's nothing better than being out with a group of friends, having a great time. And if you need a little extra something there, 5-Hour Energy has you covered. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the Bev card. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is also brought to you by FanDuel. Well, the NFL season is here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love it using FanDuel for so many different reasons. The deep market on so many different things. Yardage totals, touchdown props, and a whole lot more. They're all there on the FanDuel app, and building a same-game parlay can take a little and build it into a lot. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Now we're going to talk Hawks. Elliott Clough's been busy this morning as he's been listening to some of the players. They've met with the media, at least a handful of them. Kirk Ferentz coming up in about an hour from right now. So Elliott and folks at Hawkeye Insider will have that one covered for you. Elliott, Trent, and Ken, thank you for coming on. Good to speak with you as always. We appreciate you doing this for us on a Tuesday. Who did you meet today? And maybe a takeaway or two from what you heard earlier. Are they over the game on Saturday and looking ahead, or is there still some lingering after effects?
Yeah, I talked with quite a few guys today, Ken. Caden Weegan, Ethan Herkett, TJ Hall. Group, I think they reflect Kirk Ferentz pretty well. Kirk has kind of been known as a coach that can galvanize the guys after a loss and not let a season spiral. And I mean, you just get that feel from the guys, right? Like they talked about the Iowa State game, of course. They talked about their mistakes. They talked about how they can improve going forward. But really, I mean, what we hear a lot from these guys after a bad play or after a tough loss is flush it, and that's pretty much the thought from the guys right now is flush it and move on. Talked with Caden Weegan about some of his returns and then flipping on that pick, and Mark talked about how he can go through his reads a little bit quicker, and he felt like he played a lot better this weekend. Stayed a little bit more calm, ready to go. But yeah, not a ton to take away, especially going into a game like UMass. There's just not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to the Minutemen. Not a stellar program that they're playing this weekend. So yeah, it's tough right now. It's just a few days separated from that loss, but they do have that 24-hour rule, and they stick to it. They flush it and move on.
There was a lot of talk in some of the things that I see that you've compiled over at Hawkeye Insider about the slow mesh, talking with Gronowski. I think also Ortworth talked a little bit about it. The slow mesh, we saw for a couple of plays. It was intriguing at the very least. Take us a little bit deeper in, is this going to be a building block and a pretty major tenet of what Iowa does going forward?
That's a good question. Of course, they don't want to give us everything regarding their plan or their game plans going forward. But yeah, it sounds like it's something that they want to do, an added wrinkle for the offense and to keep opposing defenses guessing a little bit. It's definitely fun for us, right? Like we don't usually get to see new wrinkles in an Iowa offense. But yeah, one thing that Mark said is keeping the defense guessing, forcing them to commit to a run or a pass before the plays even really started. Yeah, I think it's something that really interested the staff when they were looking at bringing on Warren Ruggiero, and to see it already in week 2 was kind of surprising. But actually, one thing that Mark said is, I think it was the run that he took off himself. They kind of lucked out. Iowa State's defense kind of lucked out with the coverage they ran because they were expecting to have a big play over the top, but the coverage that Iowa State ran didn't quite allow them to do it. So that was kind of an interesting note to take away. So not just the big play action that they missed on, the pass interference that was called with Seth Anderson on the deep shot. They were looking to do it again at another point, just didn't work out. So kind of an interesting note from today. But yeah, it would not surprise me if they at least continue to run it a couple times. Probably not this weekend against UMass, where they're not going to want to be showing a lot. But it would not surprise me if they run it, against Rutgers down the road or Oregon or what have you, just to keep the defense guessing.
The running back position, I was surprised but maybe not, that Terrell Washington's still listed as the starter. There is an or down there between Williams and Patterson. Boy, it sure seemed to me like Patterson might be the guy, at least till some of the walking wounded get back. Patterson, I thought, was one of the more productive Hawks this past weekend. Are you surprised to see him where he is on the depth chart at this point?
Honestly, that's Ken. I think this is one of those situations where when Kirk says he doesn't really pay attention to the depth chart, this is exactly what he's talking about. like Jazz is just going to have to get more carries going forward. I think there is some strategy to this as well. Personally, I think Xavier Williams should be RB1. I don't think he touched the ball enough this weekend. And maybe that's in part to a few different things that, the way the Iowa State defense was running, or who knows, maybe he cramped or something. But I thought that he should have gotten more carries this weekend. As far as Jazz, to tell you the truth, Ken, I think what they're doing right now is that they're allowing Xavier Williams to get those initial carries, and then Jazz is just the perfect complement once the defense starts to start huffing and puffing a little bit, and then you get punched in the mouth by a guy who runs just one speed. There's no hesitancy for the way he runs the ball. It is straightforward, 100% gas, all gas, no brakes. And to do that, puts the defense on their back heels a little bit, I think, and forces them to get with the program, if you will. Otherwise, you might get knocked out. So, to me, that's the way it looks for these first two games. Of course, that could change going forward, but that's the way it looks to me, and it's working. I mean, Jazz is playing the best ball that he played at Iowa.
Hey, it sounds like, Elliott, you're a little bit faint on the line here. Not sure exactly what happened on that. See if we can get you back on here. I don't know.
Take a step to your right.
Yeah. Something inside the bowels of the Hawkeye complex, or maybe something happened there. You got us back, Elliott?
Yes, I do.
There you
go.
How
much of that did you catch?
Perfect.
Sorry, guys.
Hey, one final thing from me. I'll let Ken wrap up with you. And on the defensive side of the football, there were certainly a lot of good moments early in the game, holding them to 2 field goals. Feels like that they were pretty solid there. Is one thing that came out of today, the players talking about forcing turnovers. Now, you want to play clean. You don't want to get beat over the top. It's difficult to do that. What do you expect to see in order for them to generate that kind of pressure and to be a little bit more ball hawking to force some turnovers?
Yeah, that's a tough call because just the way that Iowa runs their defense is so much predicated on generating pressure and making the quarterback uncomfortable in order to force those turnovers, but it doesn't always result in sacks. It doesn't always result in pressures. It doesn't always result in QB hits, if you will. I don't know. I think it might have a little bit to do with just the fact that we're early on in the season. Balls haven't been tipped the way that maybe you would like. I think TJ Hall, if there's anybody that I had to pick to end up getting one of those first picks of the season, one of those first turnovers, it would be him, just because of the way that he's played so far this season. We heard a little bit about him taking his game to the next level this offseason. And it really looks to me like he has. Like, of course, Iowa State had a few drops this weekend, but man, I mean, he's just playing at such a high level, especially relative to what we've seen from him before. Honestly, I just think it's time. I think it's getting a little lucky with a tip ball here and there. And we'll see. I think it'll depend on who they play. It would honestly, it'll shock me if they leave this UMass game without a turnover, at least one. There are just too many things that just didn't go their way this last week. That punch ball out by Jaden Harrell that got recovered by Iowa State, the tip ball that was caught by Gabe Burkle. They're going to get one of these things to go their way eventually. And I think if there's an opportunity for it to happen, it's against the Minutemen this weekend.
Yeah, sure, seemingly would be. I'm with you. I thought TJ Hall played well. Another guy we didn't talk about yesterday is Jonah Pace. So I thought he had a decent game as well. Listen, we're up against the clock, Elliott. Appreciate you doing this for us. We'll grab you next Tuesday if your schedule allows. Hopefully, for our sake, it does. Thank you, bud. Appreciate you coming on.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, good to talk to you. Elliott Clough, as we check in on Iowa, HawkeyeInsider.com, part of 24/7 Sports.
Big thank you again to Elliott Clough joining us as we take a look at the Hawkeyes and the press conferences over in Iowa City. And Elliott Clough, you can find him, David Eichel, Sean Bach, all their work over at 24/7 Sports, HawkeyeInsider.com. Lots of great things happening there and a lot of great content if you are a Hawkeye fan. We continue here, Locked On Hawkeyes. We talked about it. Time to turn the page. What do we want to see Saturday night against UMass? We'll take a look at a couple of the big ticket items we want to see. We'll do that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. I love the pageantry, everything that goes along with it. Tailgating with your friends and family, the rivalries, though it didn't go very well last week, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more than a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prizes jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The app is super simple. That's why I love using Game Time. I can see where I'm going to be sitting inside the arena, inside the stadium, even at a concert. See your seat before you buy, and I love what you see is what you pay. No more of those surprise fees. So frustrating on so many ticket apps. It's not the case with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. As we put a wrap on things here today, it is time to turn the page. The frustrations of Saturday are still there for me. I'm sure they're still there for you as well. But we have a little bit longer than a 24-hour rule that they have inside of the Iowa football complex. We stretch things out a little bit more, but once we get through these press conferences, now it's time to really dive in and see what we expect to see, what we want to see on Saturday. And when we look at this UMass team, we'll talk a little bit more about them on tomorrow's Locked On Hawkeyes, but this is what you want to see from the get-go. I mentioned it at the top. Open this thing up. Be a little bit more aggressive, bring a little bit more in the passing game, stretching the field, taking some shots downfield. And this has been a conversation that we've had now for the last 6 years of just seeing this team be more aggressive, do more things of an aggressive nature in order to stretch the field out, get those safeties playing back, having the linebackers not playing on their toes all the time, but back on their heels from time to time. And Iowa is at such a disadvantage because of their reluctancy to do those kind of things. It needs to happen. So it starts right there. Take a shot. Do it early. First drive of the game. Look, you're going to win this football game. You're going to beat UMass. You can line up and play bully ball, run the ball every single time, and you're going to beat this team. That's how bad this UMass squad is. But that's not the problem. That's not the end goal. Yes, the end goal is to win the game. As Kirk said, yes, you want to win the game. Okay, we get that. Thank you. Yes, everybody wants to win every game that they play. But if this team has a chance to do something this year, if this team is going to build and grow into a team that can beat so many teams still left on that schedule, and we talk about the top level games, Penn State, Oregon, Indiana, USC, but even that next tier game, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska. These are difficult opponents. Even the short week that they're going to have next week, going out to Rutgers on a Friday night, it's not going to be an easy one. We saw Iowa not handle the crowd very well on Saturday. It's not going to be the same kind of environment, but they're still going to be ready to go, and Rutgers likely is going to be undefeated when that game happens, and they're going to be charged up for an Iowa program that they know, they look at as a winnable game. So Iowa's got to be ready. And in order to do that, in order to build on it, you have to be able to do those kind of things. Also, we want to see a little bit more at that tight end position. Now, doing it without one of your best, if not your best, in Addison Ostrenga, that is going to be a problem. But building now on the strengths of Zach Ortworth. Ortworth is a guy that can get down the field. We've seen that in the early moments of his career. He is a guy that has made plays up the field. So with the speed that he has, use that to an advantage. Get him up the seam. Talk about stretching the field. Use the tight end position to do that. Get him up the seam. Do some things with him in order to use and play to his advantages. Zach Ortworth, Vaname, the redshirt freshman out of Carroll, those guys at this point in their career, they're not built for bully ball. So play to your strengths. Speaking of the tight end position, when I went back, I don't even remember if I brought it up yesterday, but one of the more baffling components is on that final fourth down play. Who did the final target go to as Gronowski was rolling around trying to find somebody open? It went to Hayden Large. We heard all off season this wide receiver room was deeper, that there was an ability for them to do more. And on the biggest play of the game, came down to one play to extend the drive. You got a converted fullback on the field trying to catch the final pass. Where is KJ Parker? Where are some of the other guys that we've been hearing about? I know they're without Vander Zee. I know they're without Jared Bowie at this point in time, but that one, another one that was just confounding to see on that final play of the ball game. With that, we got to see more. Forcing turnovers too. It is time. Get out there, make some plays, get an interception, force a fumble. Defense needs to do more. And yes, as always, we're asking a ton out of this Iowa football defense. It's the spot that they are. Unfortunately, being a Hawkeye is your defense is going to have to do more in the way that they're built. But yes, we're asking for it. Let's see even more on Saturday. And then wouldn't it be nice to get up big and then be able to see extended playing time for Nathan McNeil at the running back spot, to see Hank Brown in an extended action? And if an injury comes and the way Mark Gronowski's playing and the physicality and the pounding that he's going to be taking, you wonder how long he's going to last. But to see what you have in the backup of Hank Brown and see if there is actually that depth that we've heard about at the wide receiver position. See some of these new young faces, including at the linebacker spot. I want to see Preston Reese out there. I want to see Buffington. I want to see that group of guys and see what they're going to be in the future of Iowa football. Those are some of the things that I want to see on Saturday night. But the biggest thing, yes, is an Iowa victory. Thanks for being with us as always and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We are your daily source of Iowa Hawkeye talk every single day. I got you covered throughout the course of the week, and you every day. There's a big thank you to you to being with us each and every day. Couldn't do it without your support. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Just takes a moment and helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. If you're on the podcast side, 5-star reviews, all that helps us out immensely. Thanks for being with us today. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.